right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the McKinney Podcast. We celebrate what makes us unique by nature. Fred, how you doing, man?
Man, James, I tell you what, this streak of guests that we've had on the podcast are just incredible, and I always look forward to the next. And today is absolutely no exception.
Whew. I mean, we don't make any secret. We record these in batches most of the time, and I mean, today's bar has been set, man.
Absolutely.
Future blocks are gonna have a challenge to reach the level of enthusiasm, of content, and whatnot. I don't mean to put Mike on the spot here, but man, the last 3 episodes we've done have just been, whoa, okay.
Yeah, no, and disclaimer right now, if your iPhone or your computer melts down because of the incredible content that's coming through this podcast, what can you do?
I mean,
fire.
We should have a disclaimer for all these episodes, honestly.
That's right.
So let me go ahead and invite our guest here. Get your music going. He has been around the great city McKinney for a long time. Before he entered his current role, he was executive director, or was it board chair?
Director of Parks and Recreation.
Director of Parks and Rec for a long time. What, 7-8 years, right?
Yeah, just almost 7 years.
Yeah. And last year, he made his move up the food chain of organizations in the McKinney ecosystem, if you will, and took over as the president and executive director of McKinney Economic Development Corporation, MEDC. Please welcome Michael Kowski.
Oh, thanks for having me, first and foremost. And it's Mike. Please, we're all friends here, right? We're all friends.
Yeah. For LinkedIn, it's Michael. For everybody else, it's
That's
Mike.
Right.
That's right.
That's it.
There you go.
You'll call me Kowski before the day's over, so it's all good.
Only with permission, Kowski. There you go. We're done.
Game on.
We're in. Let's do it. So, dude, I told you we were going to have, 30-ish minutes of runtime. We're always shooting for that. The previous 3 episodes were all more than that. But, we're all... I feel like I'm going to have to apologize for that most of the time for this podcast.
We might have to change our descriptor in the podcast.
We're trying.
That's right.
We're
trying.
really trying. The hard part when you got people that are doing so much cool stuff.
That's right.
It's sometimes it's hard to have a full-throated conversation and 25 minutes of actual interview.
Cannot be done.
No, especially not when you got someone like Mike who
That's right.
knows a lot about a lot. And I found myself, I think I may have even asked you the question at our lunch, back a few weeks ago, was like, your pace, my friend, is frenetic. The speed that you talk at, the way that you think it's almost intimidating. It was like, this guy is really high caliber. You better come ready to play if you're in a conversation with Mike Kowski. I found that out real quick. And that's coming from someone who people say tends to, speak quickly sometimes. It gets a little bit enthusiastic about things from time to time.
That's right. When you think you're in fast forward, Mike's 10 steps ahead of you already.
No, man. So what is the Mike Kowski story? I'd love to hear background, family, hobbies, interests, whatever you want to share with us before we get into the other stuff and talking shop.
Yeah, so born and raised in Chicago. Happy to be in Texas. I'll say that first and foremost.
Yeah.
Really, my background's architecture. I was that kiddo playing with Legos all the time, on the floor, having a good time, just building stuff from scratch. And that's always been my passion. My educational background really is about urban planning, creating cities. How fun is that?
Okay, so I like how he just downplays my educational background. Harvard, right?
Yes.
Harvard and...
Yeah, University of Illinois, Chicago, and also Harvard University. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. A great foundation.
Mm-hmm. He didn't even mention Harvard. You mentioned Harvard. That's how chill he is about it.
Yeah, no, it's so unassuming. Now, I do have to share that when I first met you, I was working on a project there at the EDC office, and they were saying, when's Kowski coming in, all this other stuff, and I was like, wow, that's disrespectful. It's not Mr. Kowski or even my first name was just Kowski. I was like, what kind of relationship do we have here? But then you came in, and I mean, you're just, if no one knows your title, they think you're just a team player, which is amazing considering all that you do.
Yeah, that's being a leader, right? I'm on the team first and foremost. I don't see myself as a president, CEO. I'm a mentor. I'm a coach first and foremost. And all of my training educationally and mentors throughout my career and beyond have really instilled that in me. And if I can convey that to my team and beyond, well, check that box. I'm happy with it. How I found my way to Texas really is the Parks and Recreation job opened up here. I knew Mr. Paul Grimes back in Chicago, and he reached out to me and said, listen, in McKinney, it's a fantastic community. We need someone like you to come in with your spark to help move stuff along in a certain direction that really matched his vision. And I said, Paul, I'm a South Side suburban kid from Chicago. I know nothing about McKinney or Parks and Recreation, to be fair. I never actually worked Parks and Recreation. But I went through the process. He convinced me to at least try it out, apply for the position. I earned the position and could not be happier. My wife and I moved down to Texas within a couple of weeks, and within a few days, we thought, well, we're home. This is pretty special. And running Parks and Recreation was a fantastic adventure. Tons of great people I got to meet. And part of my ethos in city designing is basically the space in between the buildings is what makes your community vibrate. That's the energy. And Parks and Recreation is that thread that ties it all together. And then when this position opened up, the board of directors of the MEDC, they reached out to me and said, hey, Mike, the position's opened. We would love for you to come talk to us about it. And it was an easy yes on my side.
How about that?
So the differences between EDC and parks, significant, obviously. The mission, the scope, and all of that. When you look at coming from Chicago, doing what you did, architecture, urban planning, and whatnot, you said you didn't really know the Parks and Rec world. You came in a little bit blind. Yeah. Being in your position at Parks, you get firsthand interaction with all kinds of stuff in EDC because the collaboration back and forth is significant, I would imagine. So you're applying for that EDC role, knowing full well what that role entails. And, you've had probably 3 or 4 people. I don't remember exactly what the tenure of your predecessors was, but I would think probably 3 or 4 different people were in that role since you were the director of parks. What was it about the idea of Economic Development Corporation in McKinney that you said, you know what? I'd like to put my name in the hat. That looks like a fun thing to do next.
Yeah, great question. The Parks and Recreation world is economic development, full stop. We are selling quality of life around the nation. That's what McKinney has overall. I knew the people from the EDC well before I took over this position. That's why they're saying, I can't wait till Kowski comes here because I've been there so often, giving presentations about what Parks and Recreation, what we're doing, how we're adding to, their energy and what they're trying to accomplish. Here's the biggest difference between these two roles. In Parks and Recreation, it's 10 to 20 small fires every single day. In my current role, it's one big fire, a little more spaced out. So in Parks and Recreation, you're reacting to stuff constantly because the population has high expectations for maintenance of parks, maintenance of medians, the quality of our programming, and the public is very vocal about what they want and how we can get better. So I was always reacting to that. With the MEDC role, it's more on the offense. I'm an offensive player now, and I get to promote McKinney and the brand of McKinney beyond our borders across the country and if not the world. So foundationally, it's all the same, right? I'm selling McKinney and what we have going on here. It's just that I have a different audience now.
So I imagine that, I did look up your bio and there were like several, seemed very impressive projects that you undertook and completed back in the Chicago days there. How do you feel that affect that? What did you bring from that has benefited us here in McKinney?
Relationships. When you approach a project, it's all about the person on the other side of the table from you. I think you caught that from our lunch conversation.
Yep.
I was vibing off you and going back and forth.
Yep.
How fun is that? And people working on a project together all have the same ultimate goal, the same vision. And my job is to help make sure that we're not getting off pace of that or off brand, everything else. So my experience back in my previous work in the Midwest in Chicago, I was the worker bee. I was learning every day. I was being a sponge. Mm-hmm. And that's something, if there's any young professionals listening here, please respect those early days in your career. Be a sponge, ask questions, be the first one and the last one out, grind it out, have grit. because all those small lessons build up 1% a day better, 1% a day better. So when I came into this role, I had this great toolbox and great set of experiences that actually helped me hit the ground running a bit faster than anybody else could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely see that in the things you're doing. Actually, just in the team itself that you have there in the office, because I've worked with the EDC for many years now, and just seeing this, it's like, nothing against Peter or Tokar or whoever was before him, but it's like you came in, there's like this sense of renewal, fresh air all of a sudden. And that's exciting to see because we live and breathe here, and just to know that there's somebody at the helm of the EDC, looking so far ahead. But on the flip side of that, though, do you feel that at some point we are going to max out on what we have?
Probably not in my career here. I mean, there's so much more to build out in McKinney. We're just over half built out, and tons more commercial opportunities and different corridors and so on. And you're spot on. My purpose in my role is to think 10 years ahead, but I must always be aware of my footings today. So it's that nice balance I have back and forth. And I appreciate you acknowledging the energy I bring, because basically I talk in the future tense most of the time. So when you ask me about my background, it's very uncomfortable for me to talk about, because I'm looking ahead. What's tomorrow?
Sure.
How do we get better? How do we sharpen that blade? McKinney's potential and development, we are hitting that point in the Metroplex where, I've said this before, it's really our time to attract some of those larger projects, some of those more legacy projects that will have generational impacts. And it's really exciting to be a part of that whole conversation.
Now, the world of city and urban planning is kind of akin to professional athletes. You're at a place for a certain period of time, and then you go somewhere else, and then you're there for small to medium amount of time, and then you go somewhere else. You're here, and then you do a thing, and then you get to a point where it's like, all right, what's the next thing? That's completely normal. But you've been in McKinney now for almost a decade, and it's like the ramp in front of you appears to be quite long, and you have built considerable roots here. I got to ask you, what is it about this place, this city, the people here, the opportunities here? What is it about where you are now in McKinney at this point in your career that makes you, instead of moving on to the next thing in a different metropolitan area entirely, you did parks for 8 years. A lot of times people in your position at an executive level of municipal something would go, all right, well, I'm moving to Jacksonville, Florida. I'm going to do this thing over there. Instead, you move a mile or two down the road to a big shiny new office in District 121 and take over the leadership role of EDC in a city that is exploding in EDC kind of projects. Talk about that for a little bit.
First and foremost, I do not look anywhere else in the country to live right now. I'm not looking for another job. I don't think about it. Full disclosure, people come to me every so often to gauge my interest in leaving, and it's a hard no. It's not even a conversation. Here's why. McKinney has optimism. You can't find that everywhere in the country. Optimism that tomorrow will be better. We don't know how, but it's going to be better than today, and the next day better and better. God, that's such a rare thing to have in your career, that ability. More pragmatically, we have resources here. We have resources to actually build stuff and get stuff done. There's a lot of cities with vision, but their budgets don't match their vision. With McKinney, with our growth, we're blessed to have the resources to actually get stuff done and to accomplish it in a timely manner. And then the last thing I would add to everything there, you hit on its head. I have roots here. My wife and I are here. This is our Texas home. Great people, great atmosphere. So off the top of my head, that's probably the key reasons.
Okay. All right. So you did an amazing job with Parks and Rec, and now you're continuing along that theme with the EDC. Is there a conflict between the two? Because I know that you cherish those in between and the green spaces, but at the same time, business, like, what they say, money talks and whatever else walks. Do you see a conflict there in how much growth we're going to have? And are you keeping an eye on how much, actual real earth that we can still put our feet on?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I do. It's a balancing act, right? I mean, McKinney certainly is pro-development right now because that's the stage of evolution that we're in. We're in the development stage, and that's a good position to be in. I would submit, though, that the Parks and Recreation master plan we have in place and the work done by my predecessors in that world have really set a tone to make sure we retain as much parkland and build new trails as possible. I think we're at about 3,000 acres of parkland right now, weaving around the city. I would also say this, and think about Painted Tree. It's a large residential development being built north of 380. That development was required to put in a certain amount of parkland. Well, instead of the Parks Department building all that, we worked with them, in fact, to have them build the parkland on the city's behalf. So again, there's a perfect example of us partnering with development communities to deliver the parks and amenities rather than assuming it'll get done just by the good nature of people.
Well, you know what happens when you assume.
That's true.
You have no control over the outcomes.
That's it.
And this is a family-friendly podcast, so I'm going to leave it at that.
And then with our larger EDC projects, we own land in McKinney along 121, and we're looking at different site plans for some sites that we own. And yeah, in my mind, I'm thinking about how I walk through it with my family. What's the experience when you park and you walk to the development, you engage with whatever's there. My hope, my anticipation, my purpose is to make sure that there's trees and green space and whatnot to complement all the bricks and mortar that will be part of it.
Now, feel free to say, sorry, James, can't talk about that yet. When George was sitting there back in April, he hinted at a big announcement that would be coming soon for the land on the frontage of 121. And he said then that he couldn't talk about it yet, but that when we saw it, we'd be like, whoa, on the same kind of whoa that we gave when we heard about Sunset Amphitheater and Notes Live and whatnot. Any movement there that you're able to give a little bit of a nugget on what that might be?
I think the mayor paraphrased it perfectly. Really, it's going to be something that the public's going to go, yes, this is what we need in our community. It has the potential to have as great of an economic impact as the Notes Live project. So really special. Our mission really, and this is a selfish mission of mine, that everybody in McKinney should be able to find a job in McKinney.
Yes.
Yeah.
And should be able to recreate McKinney without leaving our borders. That's right. That's aspirational. That's our aspirational goal. And right now we're trying to find those more family-friendly things to bring to McKinney. So you don't have to go down the road to have those recreation moments with your kiddos and whatnot. So that's what we're working on.
Okay, so I'm going to go full Johnny Carson here in the Great Karnak. Where will this roller skating rink be?
Oh my gosh.
No, when I grew up, that was a big deal in the city, right? Having a roller rink? That's right.
Yeah, and so that's
Is that still a thing? Are there still roller skating rinks?
There are. Actually, in a neighboring town, they actually have roller derby.
I was a teenager the last time I went roller skating.
I love it.
But, on a related note, and we posed this question to Patrick Cloutier and Justin Beller. There's a lot of growth and expansion happening, especially on the east side of McKinney. As the EDC, companies come to you basically pitching, why they should be part of our community. Do you have some sort of metric in there that takes into account things like families with younger children? Because we've got great things, downtown McKinney and developing to the east of there, but they're all more adult oriented. Do you actually have you talk about Legos? Do you have like a brick that says for children, elementary school, we need to fill this in here, or is it just first come first serve?
A little bit of both. So I'll flip your question or your observation a little bit here. We never wait for people to come to us anymore. We go to them and we tell the story. Yeah. And we tell the story of this. The population's growing by 400 or 500 people a month, depending on how you look at it. That's a lot of children coming in. That's a market segment right now that is not fully flourished yet in McKinney. Now, Parks and Recreation, we try to fill that gap as best we can. But we can't compete with some private market coolness. Right? Some things are just cooler than what Parks and Recreation can do. So we have that. And going right to your direct observation about downtown McKinney and whatnot. When I tell stories around the country, that's my opening paragraph. We have a downtown that is authentic. It has sharp edges, some cracks in the sidewalk, alleyways. That's so special. That's in contrast to some of the newer developments you see along 121 that they're new, they're fresh, they feel different than our downtown. We took a group who's looking to come to McKinney to downtown McKinney to walk around one evening. After dinner, we walked to Tubbs. And it was like a scene of a movie. At Tubbs, there were families of groups of young people having some drinks. There were some kids playing volleyball there, some other folks doing some other stuff hanging out. It was just you couldn't plan it any better. It was every age group in McKinney, every demographic, all in the same view shed. And it was perfect. So I think we need more spots like that.
Yeah, excellent. And I mean, when it's the park project that's happening over there, so that it becomes like that place down Warren Clyde. Is that
Clyde Warren
Park. Yep, that's it.
It's been a long time since I've been down there.
Because what McKinney needs more than anything else is something to complement our downtown. And what I mean by that is this. If it's a Tuesday night and you want to do something, you want to say, let's go here, wherever that is, because something's happening there. You don't know what it is. You don't have a program, but you know every Tuesday night, there's something going on there. Then on Wednesday nights in McKinney, over here, there's something going on. And just those spots to kind of, again, just spur of the moment, let's just drive to that location or walk or ride your bicycle and have some fun. We need more of those spots, I think. And I think Tubbs, even though it's more of an adult business, is trying to do that on that side of Highway 5. You know, whatever night it is, just walk over there. There's something going on.
Well, and I think the folks over at the Adriatica area have done a fantastic job. We're just creating a destination, in a certain, part of town. And if you're not adjacent to it, it's not exactly walkable, but thankfully there's ample parking, so you can, park your vehicle there. And once you're on location, it's very walkable. Obviously.
That's right.
So,
and as a photographer, I'm out there a lot,
constantly.
And yes, and what I've noticed though is that because there are more things to do around Adriatica, that I was out there just Sunday evening, and the sun had already set, and the number of people and families sitting on blankets just up on the hill overlooking the lake, I was amazing, and so I was like, man, this is good stuff, and if we can get them from sitting there on their phones and surfing Instagram instead, and just taking in the nature part of it, because that truly is, and that is one of my favorite spots because it's got different elevations and you can look across the city and all the other things, and I'm like, this is nice.
Yeah, Al Perry and George and their team over there have done just a marvelous job.
That's right.
I love it. So, Mike, when you think about what's coming next, what are the things that you are, and I'm sure there's lots of people that will be listening to this that aren't necessarily from the city of McKinney, but they're listening to this podcast to get, better informed. What would you say to the people that aren't yet here, what you guys want to see more of, the ideas, the opportunities that EDC is eager to have conversations about?
Yeah, that's a great question. We didn't touch on the amphitheater fully here, but I think it's probably been touched on in previous podcasts. But I'll say this about the amphitheater. That has put a national spotlight on McKinney.
Yeah.
That's part of what this project is all about, right? They have McKinney front and center and signaling, as it were, to the development community that McKinney can and will get big projects done. That's huge.
Yeah.
That changes the dialogue a little bit because historically, not for better or worse, it's not judgment, but McKinney has been known as a bedroom community. That's fine.
Yeah.
But our edges along the highways, everything else, those spots are ripe for bigger projects overall. And here's the great thing about it, to our listeners here, any CEOs or decision makers at a business, most likely you live in McKinney. How convenient is it to be able to work and live and play in the same city that you live in? So one of our target markets is to make sure all the CEOs or C-suite people who live in McKinney know to come talk to us about relocating their business to their home city.
Yeah.
That's easy conversation. Sounds common sense, right?
Easy.
But it takes intentionality to do that.
Well, and the amount of naked land that we have, it's incredible to think about what's possible north of 380 because, so much of the northern half, and we were talking about this before with Patrick and Justin, when I first moved here and when I first started doing business in McKinney, 380 felt like practically Oklahoma. It was like, golly, 380 is so far up there, but it's not at all, obviously. But when you look at the map, 20 years from now, 380 is somewhere near the middle from north to south. Right. It's probably one of our major roads that is, the midsection of our city. North of 380, outside of Painted Tree and, had some residential stuff, Trinity Falls and whatnot. Other than the immediate corridor of 380, there's not much of anything north of 380 right now.
Yeah.
And we got plenty of dirt sitting there going, come on, buddy.
That's it. Let's put that on a poster. You said it perfectly, because we want people around the nation to know that we are not built out. We have greenfield development opportunities.
Yeah.
And let me do a callback to the question about balancing parks and recreation with economic development. And this gives you a window into how I approach my positions, whatever position I'm in. When I was the director of Parks and Recreation, I made a concerted effort to buy land north of 380 for Parks and Recreation. So we have Irwin Park up north, which is a fantastic park. It draws people from different states on the weekends typically to go there and mountain bike and so on.
Yes.
We purchased 300 acres of land surrounding Irwin Park. It's because we did not want that land to be bought by a developer and turned into something else. We also, and I think this was pretty savvy on our part, set aside 30 acres of that land for future commercial development. Because the bypass is going next to the land we bought, and there'll be an interchange there. So we're thinking 15 years ahead. The bypass is built. We have the parkland set up for like a Gabe Nesbitt type park, lots of field and everything else. But then also you have a spot for hotels and all the stuff to support the parks and recreation stuff. That's what we want to signal, again, to the private market space. We can and will be creative.
Yep.
We will be at the bleeding edge sometimes to make sure that we're doing stuff that really helps the overall fabric of McKinney be diverse and resilient and all those great words we love to use.
I can imagine a Hub 121, District 121 type of development right smack in the middle of what is currently completely undeveloped McKinney.
Yep.
You've got, 2-lane CR such and such roads up there.
Yep.
Not much else. It's a food desert. There's no gas stations, no infrastructure. The nearest fire station is a couple miles away. And it's like, man, that part of McKinney is going to look vastly different even one decade from now.
You're exactly right. And if we're not thinking about what it should look like, nobody else is, right?
Yeah.
That's our role here, the three of us here, to think about what the vision could be for that land up north. Because you have the future bypass, you have the outer loop, which is being built right now. That's going to open up a lot of opportunities.
Yep.
So while we have land EDC along 121, we're trying to site plan and get back into the open market. Our eyes are already looking at different parts of McKinney to, again, future-proof some of those spots, make sure we have some tax-generating stuff that serves McKinney residents.
Okay, so the outer loop, you mentioned that. Can we go ahead and make that 8 lanes wide now? So that we don't have to go through all the barricades year after year, making it, adding an additional lane. I know that's whatever. On a more serious note, with the amphitheater, I know that I've seen pushback on it regarding, we don't want that here. That's what Arlington is for and all that other stuff. But on a more immediate need, do you know just ideas of numbers? How many jobs will be created just in creating the theater? And then, do you have an idea of what that means in terms of dollars into McKinney itself?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the regional impact is about $3 billion over the first 10 years. So that's helping out us and our neighboring cities. And I say our neighboring cities because right now we don't have enough hotels to accommodate the influx of people who are going to come to McKinney and enjoy the amphitheater. So guess what phone calls I've been managing now for the past few months? Hotels.
Yeah.
We're on the radar because when you go to a city that you haven't been to before, you Google the city. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you do, first, second, third search is hotels in that city. The Sheraton is a fantastic hotel. Its location has been an island for so long.
That's right.
And this kind of grounds it in the master development. Well, I would guess that we'll have different hotels coming out of a higher flag, a higher brand than that to McKinney now because there's a built-in population of people needing hotel stays going to the amphitheater. So that's a big win. Overall job creation, about 600 jobs on the property itself, about 1,500 overall jobs. So it's construction jobs and transient jobs and neighboring restaurant jobs. That's a huge deal. So let me spotlight something. On 46 acres of land in McKinney, just 46 acres, $3 billion of potential economic impact over the first 10 years. 46 acres. Huge. So when people express their opinions about good, bad, and different about the amphitheater, I like to remind them that 46 acres is just a small piece of the pie that we're trying to build and connect together. Because my ultimate hope, and this is going off on a tangent a little bit, is that when people come to the amphitheater, they don't say I'm going to the amphitheater, they say I'm going to McKinney.
That's right.
Because from an urban planning perspective, I've never been to the Colony. I go to Grandscapes.
That's right.
I've never been to Frisco. I go to the Star. Right? And so I want people to say, I'm coming to McKinney. I'm going to McKinney to do this. So I'm McKinney first, and then the spot second.
And if someone is coming for a festival or for a folk rock artist or whatever, historic downtown McKinney is less than a 10-minute drive from there. The possibilities for a weekend getaway or a girls' trip or whatever.
That's it.
Man, they're endless. I mean, how many people drive to Waco to go to the silos and they spend the whole weekend there? They'll go to the Dr. Pepper Museum. They'll go wherever. They'll eat at 4 different restaurants over the course of 2 days. They spend several $100s, not counting what they spent at the silos, which God knows how much they spend there. But I mean, just as an example, you have one destination that leads to an entire multiple days trip with hundreds of dollars of local economic impact just from one family group or friend group.
That's it. And more importantly, and this is kind of going to Aaron Warner's world, we're building brand ambassadors. They go back to their home state, their hometown, and talk about McKinney.
Yeah.
That is priceless. That's what we need.
Well, and not to knock the rest of DFW, but I've been all over DFW. I've been in just about every city in DFW. McKinney is a gem. You can go to any city in our metro area, which, by the way, is the size of the state of Connecticut.
That's right.
A little bit more than 11,000 square miles. There's more than 100 municipalities in DFW. And there's nothing really like McKinney. There's some parts of Flower Mound and Grapevine area that are really nice. Lots of green space, lots of hills, lots of, very similar energy. But other than Flower Mound and Grapevine, I'm not even aware of any other municipality in our region that even is in our atmosphere as far as what McKinney has. When you add in the historic downtown, when you add in all the green space, when you add in the great mix of local businesses, it's kind of interesting to me that Frisco and McKinney are literally next door neighbors, because I don't know if we could be more juxtaposed with, no offense to their city governance, they've got a great, Dallas North Tollway corridor, but outside of that corridor, what do you got, Frisco? There's not much. McKinney's got so many advantages. If I'm a developer, I'm thinking, wow, this McKinney place, they got a lot going on there.
That's it. When I talk to my friends at the Frisco EDC and Allen EDC, we're not in competition. We have different goals, different strategies to achieve what the councils want. So we actually work together very, very well. When I drive through Plano and Frisco and Allen, I agree. It just feels different.
Yeah.
I can't articulate what that is exactly. Maybe I'm a homer already with McKinney.
I'm an unashamed homer. And here's the thing: I expect you to play nice and say all the right things because you are polished to a T, my friend. I'm not saying that you're being disingenuous with your comments. Of course you are, 100%. I don't pretend to not have opinions. Yeah. And there's like when I go to the Star for various things, or I eat dinner at Tupelo Honey or whatever over there in that development. And I see all of their high-rise Class A office buildings. And do they have a really nice, robust, tax base on the commercial side? Yeah. Would I like that for McKinney? I look forward to when McKinney also has very similar commercial tax base. But then I look around and I'm like, I don't really do anything in Frisco. Other than like something at the Star, I don't find myself going, hey, honey, let's go to Frisco this weekend. It just doesn't happen. So you feel free to say all the good things, and I'm glad you guys are collaborating.
Yeah.
I'm just unashamedly pro McKinney. And it's like, we're better than you guys, and here's why.
Yeah. Okay, so you also mentioned Gabe Nesbitt Park, that whole complex,
yeah.
including the courts
Yeah.
at McKinney, which now includes pickleball.
The pickler.
Yeah, pretty hot stuff. Are they building another pickleball facility at the end of Silverado and Custer?
They are. Yeah, that's under review by City Council, I think, right now. So pickleball, fastest growing sport in the U.S. because it really, all ages can play pickleball. The courts in McKinney at Gabe Nesbitt Park was first and foremost a tennis facility. We added 1 pickleball court to test it out, then 4, then 8, and it is by far the most popular feature of that complex, and we're happy to provide that. The private market, though, is now coming in with their version of the pickleball complexes. So it's good, friendly competition, and we'll see where it goes, but it's not going to stop.
Yeah, I mean, and they built the indoor tennis facility there. Was that that happened during your
It
tenure
is.
with
It's one of
EDC?
my favorite projects I worked on. Yeah. So what's cool about that
Oh, how
indoor,
about that?
yeah, cool about the tennis complex is we did some tours around different states to find out which work and which don't work. And I want to make sure the experience for people who are there not playing tennis was just as good as those playing tennis. So if you go inside, it's actually a 2-story building and at the very front of the tennis complex. The second story is an overlook over the entire complex. So who's upstairs? The parents on their laptops getting some work done while their kids are taking lessons, or the other siblings who get dragged along. So when I design parks and think about that, I'm always thinking about the spectator perspective and the enjoyment of folks going there who aren't sweating and doing the work. So that separates us.
That's great. And as a matter of fact, the other day I ran into Matt Hanlon, the director of impact activities or whatever it is there at the courts. And, you talk about, putting us on the map. Apparently there is a pickleball tournament that's happening this weekend. And I was like, have we grown that much? They're like, it's amazing. And so, I just think that we're going to have 2 pickleball facilities within a stone's throw of each other.
Yeah, there's probably 3 or 4 within a couple miles of Gabe Nesbitt Park in the next year or so. And we had a pickleball tournament a couple of years ago. 1,000 people came from around the country and stayed in McKinney for 3 days to play pickleball.
That's a
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Huge.
Absolutely.
Huge.
We'll need to go live on one of those.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. The hotel side of things has got to be a thorn in your side when you think about things that are holding back potential big things from happening. Because I mean, when Aaron was here, just the last batch we recorded back in May, his episode actually dropped, this week as we record this here. He said with our current state of affairs, we're right around 75% occupancy at any given moment. And the moment any big thing happens, Texas Music, Revolution, downtown, anything big that comes along, we're instantly at 100% capacity. And we don't really have any upward mobility for a lot of things that might want to happen because with the planners look at McKinney and our potential occupancy, D2 national championship, perfect example. We don't have enough hotel rooms, so half the one team and their fans stay in Allen. What are you guys looking to do? What are you able to talk about in the way of attracting additional business beyond? As I know, Marriott is building their AC property in Stonebridge Ranch, or excuse me, Craig Ranch. Craig Ranch.
By 121.
What can we look forward to there? Because that's got to be something that is pretty dang high on the list of things that everybody's trying to work on, is how to attract more motel development. Yeah,
it was a struggle probably 6 months ago to get the hotel folks to understand what McKinney is, because oftentimes McKinney is shown on a spreadsheet at a corporate office somewhere outside of our state. How do you get that special feeling on a spreadsheet? Well, what's happened now with the amphitheater being approved, I get the phone calls now, and I can tell the story about why you need to be McKinney. And here's why I tell that story. We're at a very special chapter in McKinney. You're going to miss out. You are going to miss out if you don't come right now during this window, because your competitors are going to come. And that inspires people to really move us up the list as options. I would think we're going to get probably some higher end hotels coming up, certainly some family niche market ones. We have a Hotel Denizen opening up soon in 121.
Right beside the AC.
About 100 rooms in that one. So they're coming along. But again, with the amphitheater, it's not just about the project, the incentives, everything else. It's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
That if you're not in a business, it's hard to actually see with your eyes. So our job here is to explain it to people.
Man, if we can land something, and I know Great Wolf Lodge is not going to build one because they already have one over in Grapevine, something like that, like a destination resort style property that has not just a hotel room, but there's other stuff that happens on the property. Now that would be a tremendous win, I think, because when you look at the other parts of DFW, there's not really that many options outside of Grapevine. I mean, you've got the Gaylord property, which of course is magnificent and just a definitely a destination all its own. But outside of that area, I mean, you have to go to the Anatole in Dallas. You have, you got to drive a good way to find yourself a resort style, hospitality property. So I'd love to see if anyone's listening out there that happens to be considering, developing one of those. Come on, let's go.
Yep.
Gosh, the mom groups around McKinney would load that thing up every single weekend.
That's right.
The closest thing we have to a destination spot for families during the summertime is the Apex Center in Gade Nesbitt Park. That place is maxed out.
Yeah.
So to your point, just confirms with the eye test, there's a market there, people who want to hang out by a pool and just recreate and enjoy.
Yep.
So everything you're saying is the same stuff on my whiteboard in my office, right?
Yeah.
Here's our target stuff we're going after, and hope to share more soon.
Love it. Yep. No, the speculation of what's going in on the 121 corridor, that's going to be a lot of fun to find out.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I think we're just about out of time here. Mike, this has been wonderful. We have a lightning round. Fred's going to ask you one or two questions there of lightning round, and then we're going to finish with the question we ask everybody to end the episode.
Right. Okay, so since we've spent a little time on the amphitheater, should the opening act be Journey or Taylor Swift? The first ever.
It should be Taylor Swift. However, I think there's a third one out there we're not talking about. George Strait. That's the one people ask me the most about. Will George Strait open up the amphitheater?
Oh, my.
Yeah.
I said, I don't control that.
How about that? He turns my lightning question around on me. I love
Answer
that.
C. I reject A and B and give you C instead.
Write-in candidate.
That's what I'm hearing out there. Yeah.
No,
Right. Excellent. Okay, James, wrap it up.
Okay, final question. Your lightning rounds today have been one question. We got to get some more lightning rounds.
Well, I since we're on a streak right here, you figure it out. But it's been consistent.
Yeah,
the answers.
No, you're absolutely right.
Except for Mike.
So, who would win in a fight between a giant polar bear and a great white shark in a pool, a swimming pool of infinite size? There's no edges to this pool, and it's exactly 6 feet deep of water.
A giant polar bear and a great white shark
are fighting in a 6 foot deep swimming pool. Who wins?
That's really fascinating. I've heard these before. This is a new one to me. This is good. I'm going to say the giant polar bear wins.
Okay.
Why?
Yeah. I think it has more options. Mouth and two paws.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Flexibility. Yeah.
More maneuverability, able to pivot, be agile. More agile than the great white.
Well, Fred, I'm sorry. I have to ring this bell here. Hold on a second. And
there it is.
Yep, that's another one for Team Polar Bear, boys and girls. That is 6-2 for those of you keeping score at home.
That is right.
Team Polar Bear is racking up the lead. Now, Mike, what's the best way for someone to reach out if they wanted to have a conversation with you? I know you have a great team at EDC.
We do.
You have a board of directors that are all volunteer leaders from our community. Yeah. You may very well say, hey, great, thanks for reaching out. Let me have you talk to so-and-so on my staff, depending on what the need is. What's the best way to reach out to you if someone wants to chat? Yeah,
go to our website, McKinneyEDC.com. From there, you can find all the information. But come find me. I'm doing speaking events. Come to my office at 121 Alma. Ask to talk to me. The beauty of working in local government is you can talk to your local representatives who's actually a steward of the taxpayers' money. Talk to them directly and come meet me. I do it all the time. So, come find me.
That's right. I love that. Steward. Like, he is serving us.
Yep.
He's not lording over the community. No. He is serving us. I love that.
Yeah. He is Mike Kowski. Thank you so much for your time, my man. I really appreciate it. And this has been another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. Make it a great day, boys and girls. We'll talk to you again next time. Take care.